Okay, we're up to Kuf Beis Amid Beis. We're up to the new Mishnah. And this is the final parak that deals with the concept of things we're selling, right? We're constantly selling things. And if you sell something stam, what's included in the sale? This is the final parak that discusses that. So, a base kur offer. You're going ahead and you're selling a base kur of offer. This is quite a large parcel of land. There are 30 saw. Guys, this is important. There are 30 saw in a core. There are 6 kavim in a saw. So thus, there's 180 kavim in a base core. 180 kavim in a base core. Hayusham nikoyim amukim. You have clefts in the ground that are asara tfachim. They are deep, 10 tfachim. Oisloyim gevoyim yud tfachim, or things that are high. They're high 10 tfachim. So the Rashbam says we're dealing here with 10 by 4. 10 by 4 is considered a makam chashuv. So I'm buying this parcel of land for Zriya, and I have 2 things that are not agrable. I can't possibly go ahead and cultivate them. 1, because of its depth, and 2, because of its height, right? Then they're not counted. The Gemara is going to ask, if it's depth, it's possible to go ahead and cultivate it. Well, we'll see in a sec. We'll see Bez Hashem what the Mishnah is talking about. So the bottom line is 10 by 4, not part of the sale. In other words, you're going to have to go ahead and make up the difference of that of 10 by 4. You're going to have to make up the difference in agrable land. That's the first end of the Mishnah. However, pachas mikan, if it's less than 10 before, then the dodem ima, it's included in the area of the sale, and therefore the lekeach has to accept that. Lekeach has to accept that land, that even though he won't be able to plant there, he has to accept that. As the Gemara is going to say, it's considered batal to the land. However, v'im amalei kibes kur afa, right? If he says like a base kur afa, he adds a chaf. Afilu hoyusham nekayim amukim yaisam yasar tfachim. Even if he has clefts of land that are deeper than 10 tfachim, that goes ahead, that chaf helps to go ahead and include it in the sale. So first in the Mishnah, more than 10, if it's 10.4, whether in height or in length, you have to go ahead and replace it. Less than that, he has to accept it. And if he says like a base core, then that chaf goes ahead as the tfuya it adds on, that even if it's 10.4, right? Then you'd have to accept that. Okay. Now there's a din in Mekadesh Yistei Achusa. There's a din in Mekadesh Yistei Achusa. The pasuk says in Vayikra Chav Zayin, pasuk Tezayin, V'im Yistei Achuzasa Yagdish Ishla Hashem. If a person is Magdish, his Stei Achusa, that he's been in the family since Hashem Binun. Well, if a chayma sa'arim, guys, is a base core. So a chayma is a base core. So we're dealing with oranges and oranges, or apples with apples, when it comes to the amount of the sale in the Mishnah and that you're being magdish over there. Now, the chiddush over there, as we've said many times, is that there is a set amount, regardless of the quality of the land. There's a set amount of what you're going to go ahead to be poida your land, how much it has to be. This is only in the time that Yovel is naig, and the formula is 50 years for Yovel. You divide the 49 years. You can't plant in Yovel. You divide 49 into 50. You get 49 shkalim and 1 pudyin. So every year, starting from there, the amount that you go ahead and to be poida would be 49 and 1 pudyin. If you go ahead and 1 year goes away, it's 48 and 1 pudyin, so on and so forth. You prorate it based upon what year you're holding in the Yovel cycle. Regardless of the quality of the land, you're going to go ahead and based upon this special formula. And as we've said in the past, we're just going to say the word special formula, right? That's going to be our monica, special formula. Okay, so now, regarding that halacha, again, we've seen this before. Shanan Hossam, it's a Mishnah in Erchin. What do we say? Hamagdish Sadeu. Someone's Magdish is Steyachu. Uza, Bishas Yovel, in the time where Yovel is in vogue. No law, the base Zerach Chomesorin, you give for the area of a base core, Chamishim Shekel Kesef. Hayasham Nekoyim Amukim, if in the field there are depths are 10 tfachim deep, Sloyim, Gavoyim Yud Tfachim, Amin Aleph, Ein Nibdonim Imam, they're not counted with it. They're not counted toward the base core. Mikan, Pachas Mikan Nibdonim Imam. Now, so mamish the exact same halacha as on Mishnah regarding the sale of a base core. If it's 10 tfachim and a 10 by 4, it's not part of the sale. Regarding hegdish, if you magdish a base core and you have these areas that are 10 by 4, they're not part of the sale. Fred the Gemara to follow kasha. Now we're dealing with not the rock that's high. We're dealing with the area, the crack in the ground. Fred the Gemara va'amai. The special formula should apply to that area regardless of the field. In other words, I magdish the field, and you're telling me that area does not go according to the special formula. Why not? I can plant that. Maybe you'll say, have a base core, since that area is not a base core, it doesn't work. According to the formula, it's not true. But Tanya, we go ahead and we have in a brisa, right? It says regarding pidyon, the im. It says the lashon the im misteachusasai. Ma tamud loima the im stay. It doesn't have to say stay. Lefi shnema zera chaymesarim bechamisha shekum kesef. Ainli ela shehigdish binyan zeh. I would say only if he's magdish that amount. In other words, the only time the special formula works is where he's magdish a base core. Again, a zera chayme guy's chayme is a base core. So I would say the only time it works is where he's magdish a base core. I mean, nayan l'rabbis, how do you know to include in the special formula lesech, which is a chatzi core, a chatzi lesech, which is a quarter of a core, sa, which is a 30 core, 1/30th of a core. Tarkiv, which is 3 kavim. Trey is 2 and kav is 1. The chatzi tarkiv, kav v'chetzi, tamud leimar, they're all part of the sale. Sada mikol makom. It says sada mikol makom that if you magdish your field, you're going to go according to the special formula, despite the fact that it's not a base core. So Fred Gemara Kasha, you're telling me that if you go ahead and you magdish your steachuza, zera chaymer of a base core, and it has in it areas that are 10 tfachim deep and 4 tfachim wide, that they're not part of the cheshbon, they don't go according to the special cheshbon. Why not? They should go according to the special cheshbon, because as we see, the special cheshbon is not limited to a base core. It even applies to less of an amount. So let's look at this, area A and area B. Area A is the field. Area B is the cleft in the ground that's 10 by 4. You're telling me that area B does not go ahead and apply this din of base core of the special formula. Why not? We see that it's not area A for sure. Area B also. It's less than a base core. We have stay mechuzas, stay the lashon mikol makom. Even less than that, we go according to the special formula. Azay Fred the Gemara. And for the Gemara, Amarav Ukvar Chama Hachav and Nekoyim Malayim Mayim Askinon. You know what we're dealing with over here? We're dealing with land that is what? That is full of water. That cleft is full of water. In other words, the lav b'nei zriyan in it. You can't plant there. So the reason it doesn't go according to the formula is because it's not agrible. You can't plant. Enochinami, had it been agrible, despite the fact not being a base core, you would go according to the special formula. But since it's full of water, we want to know what the din is. So now, Dekanami, it's meduyik also that it's full of water, that it's not plantable. Tiktani, dumya deslayim. Again, we said two dinim. We said the din of 10 below, and we said the din of 10 above. Just like a rock, it's not agrible. You can't plant it. Hu adin, the cleft below is not agrible because it's full of water. Since it's full of water, you can't plant it. Shmami, no, you have a good raya. Fred the Gemara, if that's so, that it's speaking where it's right, that it's not royal Isriya, afilu pachas mikan nami. Guys, so what was the din? Outside, guys, eye contact. What was the din? If it was 10 and 4, it's not part of the sale. It's not part of the hegdish. If it's less than 10, then it's part of the sale. But if you're telling me when it's more than 10, it's full of water, when it's less than 10, it's also full of water. And you said less than 10 is part of the sale. But why? If it's not aggrable, it shouldn't be part of the sale. If it's full of water, it should be part of the sale regardless. It should have nothing to do with size, right? If it's not part of, if it's not, I was Magdish a field, and that you can plant Zerach Chaimer. And if you can't plant, it shouldn't be part of this field. So why is Pachas Mikan, in fact, part of the land? And it's redeemable according to the special cheshbon. Says the Gemara, I'll tell you why. Negoni the Aramikri. Hanu, the cleft in the ground, or the rocks that are on top of the ground, they have a name. Negoni the Aramikri. They're called the cracks in the ground. In other words, they're bottled to the ground. And when it has rocks that are higher than, even less than 10, Shidre, the dafka less than 10, Shidre the Aramikri. It's called the spine of the land. The key being, guys, it's part of the land. It's part of the land. In other words, there is a certain, as we're going to see, if something does not a makom choshev by itself, it's bottled to the ground. So when you have a cleft in the ground that's less than 10, it's called the crack of the land. But the key is it's part of the land. If it's if it's a rock that's higher, but it's less than 10, it's considered spine of the land. However, if it's more than 10, then what? Then it's not considered any connected to the land. It's considered a makom choshev by itself. If it's a makom choshev by itself, why doesn't it go according to the special formula? Because it's speaking where it's full of water. It's speaking where it's full of water. Since it's full of water, therefore it's not what? It's not part of the sale. Says the Gemara, here's the following question. Hachamai. What's the din over here? Hachamai, what's the din over here? So, what's the kasha? Let's see the Rashbam. Hachamai. Where the Rashbam goes down, where it's very, very wide, go down 3 lines. Where it gets very wide, go down 3 lines. Hachamai. The koyim amukim yud v'masnisan gabi mechira diktani nami einim dadim ima. When you're telling our Mishnah, when we went ahead and we made a sale and you sold a base core, and you have there in the ground an area that's 10 by 4, and you said it's not part of the sale. Mi mayri nami bin koyim mayim. Is it speaking about that it's full of water? Dum yid slayim similar to slayim. Because the Mishnah did say slayim also. The hilkach lehavi b'chal base core offer, and therefore, since it's not aggrable, it's not part of the base core. Avay have a ruyan lizriya, but if it's royal lizriya, nimda demima, then it would be part of the sale. Kidamino gabi hegdish, aydilma loydami mechira lehegdish. It's not comparable. The ein adam moitza kidl kaman, as we'll see. Okay, so guys, this is very svardik. We're going ahead and we're comparing our Mishnah in Baba Basra to the Mishnah one in Erchin. The Mishnah in Erchin teaches us that when it says that your Magdash Yistei Achuza and has an area that's 10 by 4 deep, right? It's not part of the special cheshbon of Zer Chemish, is because, why? Because it's speaking where it's full of water, because it's not aggrable. Now, our Mishnah also said, if you went ahead and you sold a field of that area of a base core, and Chomer is the same thing. If you make that sale, the 10 by 4 is not part of the sale. Now, does it mean that it has to be full of water? Just like that Mishnah, similar to Slayim where it's not, or no, maybe there's a different cheshbon. Or maybe there's a different cheshbon. That's what the Gemara wants to know. So, here in Baba Basra, what's the din regarding the 10 by 4 in the cleft in the ground? Does it have to be full of water in order not to be part of the sale? Or even if it's not full of water, it's not part of the sale? It's going to be the latter, guys. It's going to be the latter. Hachamai, what's the din over here in our Mishnah? So Amar Rav, Amar Papa, Afal Pisha Ein Malaya Mayim. Even if they're not full of water, it's not part of the sale. My timer, Ein Adam Moitza Shiitim Oisav B'Makam Echad. Person doesn't want to spend his money in one spot. The year like kishnayim mishloishim mekaymis, and it appears like 2 or 3 spots. In other words, if I have a field, I want it to be one. I want it to be one place. I want it to be one area. If I'm going to have in those places a makom chashov, it's considered like 2 or 3 fields. It's not considered one field. So regardless of the fact whether I can plant it or not, even if I can plant in it, even if I could plant in it, once it's gone ahead in a makom chashav by itself and it divides the field into different areas, not part of the sale. So it's more lenient to the leikeach regarding mechira than it is by hegdish. By hegdish, in order not to be part of the hegdish for the special amount to spend, it has to be full of water. However, over here, it doesn't have to be full of water. It doesn't have to be full of water. Good? Now, here's the question. So why the comparison then to Sloyim? Just like the rock is not aggerable, so too the field's not aggerable. So you're telling me, however, even if it is aggerable, it's not part of the cheshbon, right? Because it's right. Fred the Gemara, if you're telling me that's right, Maskal Ravina, but Dumya de Sloyim Katani, you learned similar to Sloyim. So l'chayra, it should be therefore speaking where it's full of water, then it's not aggerable. Says the Gemara, Masloim Labne Zrianinu Af Hanidam Lazrininu. Says the Gemara, Kikatani Dum Nislayim Apachas Mikan. When are we learning what? That Dum Nislayim, it's Pachas Mikan. That even if it's filled with water, guys, it's part of the sale. In other words, the din of Sloyim, the comparison is for less than 10. Guys, if it's less than 10 and it's full of water, it's still part of the sale. That's the chiddush. That's the chiddush. So again, we have a distinction. We have a distinction between hegdish and what and sale. By hegdish, everything depends upon the ability to plant. Everything depends upon the ability to plant. Once it's full of water, you can't plant anymore. And therefore, if you're magdish an area, magdish achusa, it has an area that's 10 by 4 full of water. Then since it's not feasible to plant there, it doesn't go according to special cheshbon. Less than that goes according to special cheshbon. Why? Because it's considered part of the ground. It's not it's bottled to the ground. If it's a crack in the ground or it's a spine of the ground, if it's above the ground, either way, it's bottled to the ground. However, by mechira, it's a whole different parsha. By mechira, it has everything to do with a person viewing the field as a whole or parts. If it has makam chashuvim throughout the field, that's 10 by 4, even if it's not full of water. And even though you can plant there, it's not part of the sale. Guy wants to have one field, he has to have one field. What about less than 10? Less than 10, he has to accept it. Not only he has to accept it even if you can't plant there. Why? Because it's similar to Slayim, it's full of water. Okay? That's the Amrav Yitzchak. Now, the person has to accept a certain amount of rocks, we said. What's the ratio? Amrav Yitzchak, Karshin Sha'amru is base arba kavim. Okay, guys, so now, based upon our cheshbon, you have 4 kavim, right? 4 kavim is 1/45 of a base core. 4 kavim is 1/45 of a base core, or 2.2%. So, no matter the ratio is, he has to accept 2.2%. So let's say it would be a half of a base core, 15, right? Then he has to accept 2 kavim. There's a certain amount he has to accept based upon, he has to accept 2.2% of what? Of rocks. So Amrav Yitzchak, Tarshin Shamru, is base arba kavim. However, what about concentration of those rocks? Amrav for Barchama, Bushim Uvloyim Bechamisha kavim, right? This din of the 4 kavim, it has to be that they're muvla in an area of 5 kavim. Guys, there is the amount of rock and the amount of land. So the amount of rock is 4 kavim of rock. The amount of land, the concentration that is acceptable is 5 kavim, right? Over there, right? Over there in that case, in that case where it is 5 kavim. When it's concentrated like that, just one second. Okay, So now, if the rock is if the rock is distributed over an area of 4 or 5 kavim, right, then it would be acceptable. If it's less than 5 kavim, then it's not acceptable. So in other words, just because you said that he has to accept X amount has a number to it. The number is 4 kavim. That he has to accept. So now I can have 4 kavim spread around the whole field, which is very, very little. I can have 4 kavim concentrated. If it's concentrated, that's considered a makam by itself to get rid of the rock. So says Rav Ukva, says Rav Ukva Bar Chama, fellas, this area, this amount of 4 kavim is provided it's spread out over 5 kavim. Again, it gets a little funny, guys. Again, you're measuring 4 kavim of rock to 5 kavim of land. 4 kavim of rock to 5 kavim of land. If it's less than 5 kavim of land, he doesn't have to accept it. Only if it's 5 kavim of land. That's the shita of Rav Ukva. However, Rav Chia bar Abba, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, he disagrees. He says, "V'hushem uvloyim beruba shel sadeh." What's roiv of the sadeh, guys? Now you're speaking about 30 saw, so you need 16 saw. So these 4 have to be spread over 16 saw. If it's less than that, he's not acceptable. So that's in other words, that's a tremendous chumrah for the lekeach. 4 by 5 kavim is much less. Here says Rabbi Chia bar Abba, he's disagreeing that these 4 kavim have to be spread out over the roiv of the base core. The base core is 30, roiv of 30 is 16, so the 4 have to be spread over 16. Okay, now that was Rav Chia bar Abba. So boy Rav Chia bar Abba, Ruben b'miuton, u'miuton b'ruben. Let's say if the majority of those rocks, they're concentrated in the minority. In other words, you have 4 out of 16, but it's 4 of 9. 4, do you need in the majority, the 16, do you need a roiv or not? So boy Rav Chia bar Abba, Ruba b'meuta or meuta b'ruba, right? Let's say it's within the less than 16. I guess the minority of 16 would be 7. I guess 6, 8, and 8 is right. 7, right? Or it's spread out in majority would be 9. What's the din? It says more teku. That's a teku. So again, in terms of concentration, you have 4 kavim. Now we have machloikis. According to Marukva, the 4 kavim, it's only part of the sale if it's spread out in 5 kavim of land. According to Rabbi, they have to be spread out in 16 kavim of land. And we have a shiloh within that 16 kavim, doesn't have to be spread out in the roiv of the 16 or the minority of the 16. And then remains that remains teku, the last shiloh remains teku. Guys, it's good? It's a little, I don't know, a little funny. A boy Rabbi Yemia. Okay, Rabbi Yemia is a shiloh. And again, we're dealing with making things as difficult as possible for this guy with these amounts. So there's following shiloh. Let's say the land, you have the rocks are spread out like here, like a bracelet. Right? The rocks are spread here like a bracelet, guys. What's the din? V'imtim saloim, without that doesn't work. What about this din? Keshura. Okay, he's gonna have to lift his plow. What about itztadin, which is itztadin is a bull that's trained to gore. So look, it goes like this and it spreads out like this. So in each one of these cases, one is more difficult than the next. Okay, so we want to know. I think I have one more over here. Yeah, this one. Derech haklosin. What happens if it's like this, guys? You see, look like an M. If you can tell me that's good, what about this? So we want to know now all these different cases when it says that you have to accept a certain amount of rocks. What about if the rocks were placed in such a configuration, a different configuration? So kishir mahu, kishura mahu, it's stadin mahu, derech haklosin mahu. The Gemara says teku. Kana Im hoyaseli yechidi, afilu kol shu einim dam imay. Let's say it's a rock. Afilu kol shu, meaning it's less than 10 tefachim, and it's on the side. You don't have to accept it. You don't have to accept it. Im hoyasamich lemeitzar. Let's say it's in the middle of the field. It's in the field itself, but it's near the boundary. Afilu kol shu einim dam ima. So even if it's less, again, when we said that 10 tefachim, we said that 10 tefachim is, you have to, less than 10, you have to accept, right? That depends on location, we're saying now. If it's on a place where it's on the side, let's say it's on the side, then you don't have to accept it, okay? Of course, you can go ahead, it's easily removed. Says, Boy Rav Papa, Mufsik Ofa Beintayim Ahu. Let's say, guys, look at my hands. Let's say this is earth. You have three, this is the boundary. This is 3 tefachim of earth, and then you have the rock. 3 tefachim is loved. Less than 3 tefachim is loved. Do we say it's connected to the boundary, or do we say since there's offer between them, it's not part of the boundary, and you'd have to accept it? That's the question. If it's part of the boundary, you don't have to accept it. If it's not part of the boundary, then you would. If not part of the boundary, then you wouldn't have to accept it. If it is part of the boundary, then you can get rid of it, and you don't have to accept it. Okay, then it's not. Boy Rav Papa, says Rav Papa, Mufsuk offer beintayim. This is imtim saloima, guys. In other words, if you're going to tell me that offer is considered a separation, let's say mufsuk offer beintayim. That's the din. Okay, teku. Boy Rav Ashi, offer milmata. If you're going to tell me that offer would be a good would be a good separation, offer milmata summa lamaila. The rock's above, but you have 3 tefachim of earth below, or offer milmaila, but summa lamaita. Or you have the malmaila. You have the rock above, the offer above, and the rock below. What's the din? Do you go after the offer, and therefore it's a separation? Do you go after the rock? What's the din? Says the Gemara Teku. In all these cases, we say what? We wait for Eliyahu to come along and answer our questions. Eliyahu should come along and answer our questions. Okay. A new halacha. Beis kur ofa ani meichelecha. Right. A base kur offer, I'm selling you base kur offer. However, 1 second, I'm going ahead. He says, I'm selling you a base kur offer, and he says, mida bechevel. I'm selling to you as measured by a rope. In other words, I'm selling you exactly a base kur offer. I'm selling you exactly a base kur offer. So let's keep in mind, guys, right? Let's keep in mind a base core has 30 sa. Every sa is 6 kav. There's 180. Therefore there's 180 kav in a base core. A quarter a kav. If there's 6 kavim in a sa, a quarter, 6 times a quarter is 1/24. So in every sa there's 124 kavim, right? There's 124 kavim. 30 sa, therefore will be 30 times a quarter. How many quarters of a kav? Quarters of a kav would be 30 times a quarter of a kav will be 7.5 kavim. So this is important. 7.5 kavim is that's the number we have to know. 7.5 kavim for the next Gemara. Okay, based upon the cheshbon of a quarter of a kav, and there's 30 times a quarter, and therefore there's 30 quarter kavims or 7.5 kavim in a quarter. There's 7.5 quarters. 7.5 quarters in 7.5 times 7.5 times a half would be 30. Okay, 7 times is 28, and the other 2 is 30. So 30 sa, 30 kavim in a 30 sa in a base core. 30 quarter kavim, a quarter of a kav is what? Is 1/24th, is come out 30 times a quarter, have a quarter of a kav, would be 7.5 kavim. Okay, says the Gemara. So if you mida bechevel, piches kol shehu, even if it's your for a little bit, you knock it, you go ahead and you deduct from the price. Chaisa Kalshu, a little more, Yachsa, then the Lekech has to give it back. The Mamar, but when the Meicha said, I'm selling you a base core, he said, Hein Chaser, Hein Yasa, I'm selling you a little more or a little less, meaning I'm not going according to the cheshbon of a rope. Afilu pichas roivelisa, even if he gives what, even if pichas roivelisa, even if it's a quarter of a kav, it's 7.5 kav less. Or heser roivelisa, or a quarter of a kav of a saw more. Again, and this is a field of 30, so it's 30 times that quarter, 7.5 kav. Hikiu, the deal is on. Now, what about Ina? Guys, what about Ina? What's the deal's on or off? So you look at the Rashbam, where it's in the Mishnah, count on where it sees the word Mishnah, count on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines.
No?
That's what we're going to address that question, Baruch. So now if you go down 1, 2, 3, about 4 lines down, the Afagav. First we're going to learn is the Chaser. The Afagav, the Eino Lekarkois, even though there's no din of Eino Lekarka, Hani Mili Kishayim Chaloi Beyoiker Yoisim Ishtus, where you go ahead and you sell it for more than its price by more than a sixth. Where you go ahead and you trick each other in amount of land, the din of Ainah is only, guys, in the price. It's not in the size. It's not in the size of the land. If in there, we would say we would say that the deal is off. Now, Rosh Hashanah is asking a seminal question. If those din of Ainah in the karka, what's this whole Mishnah talking about? A little more, a little less. Again, if there's no Ainah, you could whatever you do, you do. That's only regarding the price. Regarding the size, there's certainly that's a mekach tois. Again, I'm selling you X amount, and you're going ahead and not giving me that amount. I said I'm giving you this, and I don't give you this. That has nothing to do with Ainah. That has nothing to do with Ainah. So again, I think it's an important point. Obviously, Rashban felt it's important as well to mention it. Why the din of Ainah doesn't get over here? Okay, so if he said he said a little more, a little less, we said as long as it's 7.5 kav, then it's fine. Yoisamikan, let's say it's more than 7.5, then yasa cheshbon, then you make a cheshbon, right? Mahum, then he has to. It's more than 7.5. He has to return to the meicher. Why does he return, guys? Does he return that little bit of land that's more than 7.5, or does he return cash? Now, the problem is a little bit of land. What are you going to do with a little bit of land? You can't do anything, right? It says the Gemara. Mahu machsalai. What does the lokeach give? Where he said X, there was more than what than he should have. In other words, he said a little bit more, a little bit less. It's speaking in the case where he didn't measure with a rope. And now we're at the 7.5 kav mark. And now it's 8 kav or 9 kav. We're over the limit. We have to get back to when he returns it. Does he return money or just that amount? So why does he return? The Mishnah says, he goes ahead and he returns the mois. He has to give him back money. However, in Ratzah, if the Meicha wants, Maxlei Karka, you can give the land back to him. Gemara, Velama Amru Maxlei Mois. Why does the Mishnah say that he has to go ahead and return money rather than land? It says, well, the Yapis Kaicha Shal Meicha, that go ahead and go ahead and increase the power of the Meicher. Because if you're going to give him back a little piece of land, what's he going to do with it? So therefore, give him back money, and that will work better.
Does he give back what's over the 7.5?
Yes. Yes.
Just the overage.
Yes, I think he gives back the whole thing, and we're going to see that
the whole thing, or just the
whole thing. He doesn't go back to the 7.5 mark. I think he gives back the whole thing. Shem Shir Besada base Tisha Kavim. If he leaves over base Tisha Kavim, that'd be a large area. Ubagina or Nagina base Chatzi Kav. Uchadir Rebbe Kiva base Roiva. Rebbe Kiva said even a quarter of Kav. Then Maxlei is a Karka. Then you return the Karka. Well, we see over here that these areas are a Makom Chashav, but if it's less than that. V'lo yasa Roiva b'vadhu Maxir. So this is Rev Avi. Here's your point. He doesn't always just give back the extra quarter of a calf that went over. He gives over all the excess. Everything that was extra, he gives back the whole thing. Once it's done, it's done. Right? That's the Mishnah answers your question.